Hey everyone, Paul Sam. Welcome to part 2 of our Alpha Models Audi RS6 Avant video build. So today we're going to deal with the interior. So we've got a few bits to clean up: paint, prime, paint, detail paint, and then assemble together. And that'll lead us to part 3. We're going to deal with the wheels, brakes, windows, lights, and what have you. And that's the build done. So we're nearly there. Progressing along nicely, so let's jump straight in with this build and let's get cracking with cleaning up some resin, getting some primer down and some paint. Hey everyone, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications, get notified of our latest videos, give the video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and leave a comment. I do read and appreciate every comment you guys and girls leave behind. I may not reply to them all, but they are all appreciated. And there's a link in the description of the video that takes you to a big long list of all handy videos and a lot of the products I use in my videos. You now have the chance to support the video content creation by using Patreon or the PayPal me link in the description down below. All the videos always remain free to watch. This is just your chance to help support the videos. Right then, so we're back on the Audi RS6 and today we're going to deal with the interior. So as you can see, our paint now has been curing for, I think it's only 3 weeks. We've not worked on this. We're working on the Lancia and a few other projects. We've been spreading ourselves far and wide, but we're back to this today. And like I say, we're going to deal with the interior. So I'm just sorting through some parts. I'm going to quick look at what's what we're going to need for today, and what we're going to need for the subsequent parts later on to finish it. So lots of choice for the interior. Now, I could go black. It would look good in black, but I chose tan. For a bit of a change of pace, I thought we'd go with tan on the Audi. Now, it's not the most awe-inspiring of interiors. It's certainly not a pretty Ferrari or anything that's very flamboyant, but it's still quite a nice cockpit. So we've got some nice seats, nice bench seat, nice centre console, and a fairly nice dashboard as well. So we'll try and paint it up and put some detail on there as good as we can. There's lots of PE for trim in areas that you can barely see, and no PE trim for the areas that are very prominent, which is a little bit strange. I don't get it on this kit at all, but it is what it is, and we'll make the best of what we can. So we removed some of the paw plugs off the seats. I just used a knife on that. It was the easiest way to get rid of it. Bottom of the door cards, we've got my JLC razor saw. I'm just going to cut this away and then sand it flat. And obviously pick and choose your weapon of choice for removing the paw plugs. So you'll either be using just a sander, your knife, or your razor saw, or a combination of all three. As you can see on the dashboard at the front, we've got a paw plug at the front, and then we need to come at it from underneath to get rid of the angle there, because this needs to sit flat on the front of the car windscreen. So we'll cut most of it off with the razor saw, and then come in and attack it with our knife. It's just a case of just scribe away at it until it's nice and flat. It's quite an effective thing to do on resin. As long as you're nice and gentle and keep the blade straight, it will tend to cut the resin off really nice. Just be careful doing this, bringing the knife towards you. I would not recommend that at all, even though I'm there. Do as I say, not as I do. For mounting for paint, I've drilled some holes in areas that you can't see. And if we can't do that, we've got clips to hold them, or we'll use double-sided 3M pads and tongue depressors to hold the parts for painting. We've got some PE grills, speaker grills, and a few other parts to paint as well. So they're all cut off with our Zoran PE shears, and then we cut off the rest of the fret, and then file it smooth with our Tamiya photo etch diamond file. Very, very flimsy photo etch on these parts, very, very thin. So make sure you grip them well with the tweezers, and just give them a light file with the diamond file. Highly recommend this Tamiya diamond file. I've had this thing for about 12 years. Gets used all the time, and is a very handy piece of a very handy tool. Steering wheel and the steering column. So the column can stay on the paw plug. We can keep it there to paint, but the steering wheel, thankfully, mounted underneath, not in a prominent area. We'll just gently cut this off with our razor saw, and then give it a quick light sand with a sponge sander. Now remember, resin is very easy to sand, and it's very easy to misshape or deform the part. We've also got some PE parts that need gluing in place. So we've got the instrument binnacle is a nice photo etch part, and some of the LCD screens, or the display screens, are probably not LCD anymore, are they? Some of the display screens need putting in place as well. So some small dabs of Bob Smith's odorless glue. We cut the PE off and filed it as well to make sure it's nice and smooth. And then use your instructions. Make sure you get the right piece of PE in the right places. So there we go, there's that one in. And the other one. And then the paddle shifters, these can only go on one way. It's shaped, it's like a half moon connection point. So we've bent those to shape and then pop them in place. And then a quick file of this last piece of PE, which is for our foot controls. So we've got our brake, clutch and a footrest. Sorry, brake, accelerator and a footrest. So you have the rear part, and there's the actual pedal itself that glues on the top. And all these parts are stuck on a double-sided 3M pad. Easiest way to do these. And then in the spray booth, we've got some Mr. Servicer 1500 black. It's thinned about 60-70% with Mr. Hobby level and thinner with retarder. We're at about 16 psi. It's my Iwata HPC Plus. It's my general kind of spray gun now. Don't worry, the apexes haven't gone anywhere. They are still there. I just really fancy getting an Iwata again before all the rumours start of, oh no, he's ditched the apex. I have not. I've just decided to buy one of these again. Not for any particular reason other than I wanted one. So, a couple of light coats. Don't be tempted to put it on too heavy. You don't really need to at all. As you can see, I've not gone really heavy with it. We'll do all the PE parts at the same time as well. Like I said, we're about 16 psi, nice low pressure. And we're just going to give everything a couple of coats of this. So we go around, don't try and get full coverage in the first go, but we're just going to light coat on, covering everywhere. Let it dry for a couple of minutes, come back, and we can put our second coat on as well. But just make sure you get all the angles. On the first coat, try and get all the angles to get some paint in. And on your, the first coat, and on the second coat, you can come in and fill all the areas that you missed. So good primer, Mr. Servicer. Like I say, I am like 99% lacquer paint now. It's just the way I roll. Helps with speed of painting. It just helps me speed along the videos, basically. It means I can get on and paint things a bit quicker, get the video parts done, no waiting around for things to dry. So lacquer paints are my go-to paints now. And then we go after a couple of coats, that's that done. Covers really well. It really does. For the seats and all the parts, we're going to paint in tan. We're going to prime in Tamiya Grey. This is the fine surface prime. We decanted out the can. Left to off gas. Thinned about 20% with Tamiya lacquer thin with retarder. Again, we're about 16 psi. Same airbrush. And a couple of coats of this. We'll get these primed and ready for paint as well. So, like I say, not the most awe-inspiring interior, but nice nonetheless. So we've got no fancy bits to mask up and paint. It's just a functional, nice Audi interior. So it might look a bit basic at the end, but it is what it is. This is the colour I chose to do it, the tan saddle colour from Zero Paints. So using Pipette, we're going to pop this into the airbrush. It's been mixed up as well using the Badger paint mixer. And then because we're putting it onto resin, we don't necessarily need to be careful, really light coats. Although following good paint practices, I still wouldn't hose it on. I'd concentrate more on your first couple of coats to get all the angles. Because we've got headrest and everything to get through there. So just make sure you get all the angles and get coverage first. So like these colours, I've got a couple of go-to colours that I like. I've got this tan. I've got an off-colour beige and a Bordeaux red as well. They're probably my favourite interior colours. And I've even mixed some of them together. I mixed the beige and the tan to make a darker beige colour. So I guess the beauty of these paints, that they can be mixed together. But it's a nice colour, this one. I really do like it. Now, one thing I've done before in this colour is I've added a panel line wash. And while it accentuates all the details, I think sometimes it looks a bit too much of a stark contrast. So I opted not to on this. And I'd like to know your thoughts. Does it look a bit plain? Does it look better without the wash? I think even when I did a dark grey one, I think it looked a bit too much. I think ideally I need to get some of the brown Tamiya panel line wash. But I don't have it, unfortunately. I have the black and the grey. I do have oil paints, but yeah, they take so long to dry that you're just forever trying to wipe it out the joins on interiors on cars. I've tried before, so I'm not a big fan of it. I much prefer the enamels because they dry a lot quicker. And there we go, after several coats, getting all those angles and recesses and behind the headrests. We are going to mask that load cover at the back and paint it black later, so you need to make sure you get painted all behind there as well. Everything else on the interior near enough is going LP5 semi-gloss black. So a couple of light coats of this. Like I say, not the most interesting of interiors, but still quite nicely detailed. Now, there's photo etched trim that goes on the front of the dash, but it goes tucked under a little like ridge of the dash at the top, and you cannot see it at all. Whereas there's a very prominent chrome trim around the entire right-hand side of the dash that has nothing on it. And I tried to do it with a silver pen, and the bottom half was fine. The top half, it's not pronounced enough, so the pen ran, so I had to repaint the part. So yeah, I think a little bit of PE would have been good for that trim rather than the other smaller bits, or even both. But like I say, it is what it is. We'll make the best of it that we can. Like I say, all these parts painted in Tamiya LP5. I did think of doing NATO black. I think we used that possibly in the other Audi. But I thought, you know what, let's have a bit of a shiny leather this time, a little bit different. So there we go. Probably 2 light coats of this over the grey, getting all those angles and recesses, and coverage is really good on the lacquers, really, really good. And there we go on our steering column as well. You could put the steering wheel onto the column and paint it if you want. Like I said, I just find it a bit easier to get the angles sometimes. Now these have all been drying now for a good 4 or 5 hours. And we're back here now, and we're going to mask up this rear load cover at the back. So this is going to be black. It is a black and tan interior, so we need to add some black to this part, or does it look a bit too much tan, if you know what I mean? So carefully mask it up, burnish the edge down with a cotton bud, fold the top over, and then we need to infill the rest so we don't paint all our nice seats black by accident. So we just use some 18mm Tamiya tape over the top to form a barrier, and then being wary of our angles when we spray, being careful, we can angle the airbrush like this to carefully paint that parcel load cover in LP5. Like I say, keep the airbrush angled properly, you won't get any overspray. Even just after 1 coat, you can see the coverage really well. This is thinned probably about 60, 65%, 70%. I don't really measure, I kind of do it by eye, guesswork. As long as your airbrush isn't whistling away, I always know I painted them properly. Now, I made a mistake of painting these parts in the tan colour and then realised they're actually the door handle trim pieces. So sprayed them in Mr. Hobby Superfine Silver, as I did with the speaker grills, which I was originally going to leave black. But looking at a particular interior of a car, I saw that it was silver, and I thought, you know what, that will add a nice highlight to the door cards, so we'll do them in silver. So a couple of light coats of the Mr. Hobby Superfine Silver, and it adds a bit of interest to the door cards. Love the Superfine, love the Mr. Hobby Super Metallics. They are absolutely beautiful paints, very highly pigmented and really nice quality. For the rest of the parts, we've got some Vallejo Model Air Silver, and one of my Winsor & Newton Series 7 detail brushes. I've got my Tamiya visor on, as you can see, and we're going to detail paint some of the parts by hand. So a steady hand, a good optivisor or magnifying glass, and this isn't too difficult to do. The parts are quite good. I'm just disappointed about that trim on the right hand side. I would like that nice piece of PE to go around that. As for the door cards, there's a nice piece of prominent trim here. We can very carefully paint silver. You definitely need a steady hand to do this, and thankfully I do have one. So please bear in mind when I'm doing this, I am also live streaming as well, so quite often I get distracted mid flow, as you see there. I'm doing it, stop to talk to somebody or answer a question. So multitasking sometimes has its downsides. But even there, we've got that trim nicely painted. So there's 4 pieces, 2 on each side to do. So there's the one side nearly complete. Like I say, steady hand, bit of confidence, bit of practice, and you can detail paint stuff like this by hand, no problem at all. The centre armrest has a little catch at the front that's silver as well. And then we've got some buttons on the armrest, which we're going to paint in model colour black. So the Model Air is the airbrush ready paint, so I like the metallics in that because they flow really well. The model colour is their brush paintable range, very, very thick paint. You need to thin these with a drop or 2 of water. The Model Air I don't thin for brush painting because they lay down really well. Like I say, nice steady hand, and you can get parts like this done no problem at all. You don't need a lot of paint on the brush. Good quality brushes do help, and I'm a big fan of the Series 7s. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, they're too expensive, but you get what you pay for, really. Now, the main beauty of using water-based paint on lacquer painters like this, I didn't lick that either, is if you get any paint where you don't want it, you can wet a cotton bud, and it'll let you wipe straight off. It's as simple as that. So that's the armrest, basically the window mirror controls, won't it? And then on the side of the seats, we've got the seat controls. We're just going to paint the buttons in black on that as well. So what we're trying to do, it's like I say, it's not the most awe-inspiring of interiors. We're just trying to have a bit of focal point interest. So it doesn't just look like a sea of black or tan. So paint the seat controls, the seat belts themselves as well. Later on, when it's all dry, we'll put the actual seatbelt red push button in there too. But for now, I'm just going to get everything painted black and silver. Like I say, steady hand, good paint, good brushes, makes light work of this. Decals, so we've got the speedo gauge and what have you right in the centre. And we've got a few other screens in there to do as well. So nice decals, no problem at all with these. Cotton bud in to get rid of all the excess moisture. And like I say, there's other screens like this one here, there's one below it, and one at the back as well. So get all the decals in, get all the moisture off and behind them, hit it with a decal solution of your choice. Mine is the ultimate decal solution. You can't beat our decal solutions, if I'm honest. We have 3 different strengths of setting solution. We have a normal, strong, and extra strong. And on these, I think I just used the normal. We've got the Audi logo for the centre of the steering wheel. I'm a little bit out of focus for some reason here. Not quite sure what happened, but you can kind of see what I'm doing. If not, squint. I'm squinting now and I can kind of see what we're doing. And again, remove all the moisture. And then hit it with decal solution. Steering column goes in first. We have detail painted the paddle shifters. I've painted them silver. So with that in place, a little bit of glue on the hub itself, and then the steering wheel goes on. Now, make sure you get the steering wheel straight. It's something that really annoys me. Steering wheel's got to be straight, dead on, straight ahead. And there we go, there's our dash. Like I say, not the most exhilarating interior. There is a piece of chrome trim P to go on the right-hand side. I haven't put it on there, but it will go on. And our armrests, we've got the Bob Smith's, one of my precision applicators. You can find those on my Amazon store. And just refer to instructions. Let's be careful here, don't let parts move around like that. Line it up, repeat for the back. And there we go, there's our door card armrest handles on. Repeat for the other side. There we go, and then our speaker grills. Now, a little bit out of shot here, so I've got a picture of one and there's another 6 to go on. So apologies for missing out on that. And then we've got our luggage, what we call this? Like a backseat storage net? What would you call it? I painted it in black for a bit of a different colour. And then a quick test fit of the interior. So one thing I've learned with these kits is test fit everything. If you're not sure something fits, test fit it. So I'm just checking the door cards fit where they're supposed to go, which they do, and actually kind of hold themselves in there quite well, which is quite nice. Just seeing the dashboard goes in that way, it does not. So out they come again. Dashboard goes in. We're not gluing anything in place yet because we're still going to polish all the body and paint the interior. But there we go, that's that. The seats are coming out just for now. We know they will stay in. Rear low cover goes in the rear seat, and then the main part of the interior goes in, and then there's a piece to go underneath of the chassis. So we know that fits, so that's good. Now the only piece that can be glued in now are the two front seats. So these kind of slot in. So there's a little lug at the front, bit of say glue around there, slot them in place, make sure they're straight and they're fully home. My interior has been flocked as well. My partner Hannah does that for me. I have nothing to do with flocking because it ends up all over me and ends up back in the cave and all the paint. So to flock, you literally use some enamel paint where you want the flocking to go. A tea strainer, you flock, tap it over the top, remove the excess, repeat if you need to. It's fairly simple, but it's so messy. I refuse to have it in my cave anymore. Seatbelts, we're going to add these in. Now you do get photo etched seatbelt material with the kit. We are going to be using my own seatbelt material. I've got some black stuff. So we put the buckle on. I just cut it to a rough length for now. Put some double-sided tape on the back. And just lay it down, and then we can cut it to size and stick it in place. And then peel the back off. We can measure it up. Put it roughly where we need. So it goes into the top, that's its actual locating point. Then we run it down the back to the bottom. And there we go, get stuck on it. So place it down the bottom. If you need to pull it back off, it will pull back off, just be careful. Lay it down, and then we need to push it into the top. Like so. Repeat that for the other side, and there's our rear seat belt in. And again, just add a nice bit of detail to the kit. Also painted the seatbelt buckles black. And then for the actual side interior seatbelts, the front seatbelt should we say, we're going to stick these to the door card, and then we can put it onto the B pillar once we put these in later on. So just line it up, stick it in, line it up with the seats, make sure it's roughly where you want it. And there we go, there's all the interior done. Like I said, I did contemplate doing a wash. Decided against it. Let me know what you think. Would it look better with a wash? Should I invest in some of the Tamiya brown panel liner wash? I think I need to. Polishing the body, you've seen me do this a million times, so I'm not going to bore us all by going over it, but we're going to use basically a combination of 2500 grit wet and dry, 8000 and 12,000 grit micromesh, and a 3000 grit Tamiya sponge. And we're going to use those where needed. So the sponge can be used on curved areas. The 2500 wet and dry I find is a bit better for actually getting rid of dust spots. I find it a bit more precise. And then the 8000 and the 12,000 to finish it off. So we either use the 3000 Tamiya sponge or the 2500 wet and dry to get rid of flaws on corners or straight edges. And then we use the 12,000 and 8000 micromesh for everywhere else. Once we're happy we got rid of all the dust, and you know me, I will not push a paint job to ruin it. So my paint jobs do have slight flaws in. I do not hide that fact at all. We can come with the UMP compound. This is our polishing system, and a nice cotton cloth. We change our cloths at UMP now. They are now these nice pink cotton cloths, and not the microfiber ones. I'm finding these are much better. We're going to polish it up with the compound, clean it all off, and then come back and polish it up with the polish. So the compound's a much more aggressive polish basically, but be aware of where you're applying it, be aware of any raised edges. I did actually kind of burn through a touch on one of the roof rails. Luckily you can barely see it, it's on the inside edge, so quite lucky there. But it is surprising how quick you'll burn through things, especially on the edge of the paint. So go around in circular motions. I like to concentrate on one panel at a time, and then when it's done you can buff it off, and you can see there nice high shine already just off the compound itself. Like I say, my paint jobs aren't flawless. I openly admit it. If you've got dust in there, you could be fighting it all day long, and you always run the risk of burning through. And for me, I don't want to ruin a beautiful paint job like this. You can still see my slight dust spots in there. Does it bother me? Not all that much. I'm not doing show building, show winning models. I'm doing this for my enjoyment and to make videos for you guys. And then we're with the polish now. So the polish is a lot thinner, a lot less aggressive, but still be careful where you're applying it. Make sure it doesn't get burned through on any edges. And yes, somebody commented the other day, yes, I have my dressing gown. I do. It's getting rather chilly in the UK now. With the rising cost of energy, my central heating is normally on by now, but it isn't. So it can get a little bit chilly. Bear in mind, I'm out here all hours of the day. I can't quite see my watch what time it is. I think that says 7:15 of an evening. So, you know, got to keep warm. So, yes, I have my dressing gown. I'm sure many of us model in our dressing gowns. That'll be my question of the day, I think, in the video. Who models in their dressing gowns? But the polish all done, we can go around and give it all a good final buff up with a clean cloth. I tend to have 5 cloths in use, 5 cuts of the cloth. So the cloth's been cut up into 5 kind of equal size pieces. I use 1 for compound application, 1 for compound removal, 1 for polish application, 1 for polish removal, and then at the end here in a bit, when we do the jet wash to get rid of all the remnants of the polish and what have you, I then use the final one at the end to give it all a final buff up. But look at that beautiful colour. Absolutely stunning. Beautiful 2K job. Lovely. Now we've got some water in the airbrush, and what we're going to do now is jet wash all the panels to get rid of any residue of polish. Now you can see the colour of the water, it does go white, and that is the polish being removed. So it's good to do this. Toothbrush doesn't always get it all out. So I will literally spend 5 minutes, go around the whole model, and jet wash the entire thing in every recess, nook and cranny. Now, for whatever you do, make sure you have the correct bottle. I have very nearly used lacquer thinner before, because I keep them all in the same bottles. So put your lacquer thinner out of the way. Make sure there's no lacquer thinner in the airbrush, remnants from before, and run water through beforehand. And as you can see, it does remove it really well. I was going to say, the polish itself does a really good wax job, because look how well that's beading off. I haven't even polished this body yet. Yeah, it's beading off the paintwork really well. So it just shows you the quality of our polishing compound. But yeah, it uses a jet wash to get in all those nooks and crannies, all those recesses. And it's surprising what you'll remove, and it's just a quick way of doing it. And I'll be honest, it's actually quite satisfying to do too. But like I say, be surprised where you'll find polish residue. Normally at the end of a build, you'll spot it, but like, ah, damn, there it is. So I like to get rid of it now if I can, and this for me is the most effective way of doing it. Once you got all the residue out, you can use just air on your airbrush. Make sure you don't chip the top of the paint with your airbrush. Be very careful. We're going to use this to dry the airbrush off. We're just going to blast away the water with air. Get rid of as much of it as we can. Then we can dry it off with some tissue, nice and gentle, and give it a final buff up with that 5th cloth I was talking about. And there we go. Like I say, quite a satisfying thing to do this. It really is. There we go. Right, so with that all dried off, we can now paint our interior. So we've got some Vallejo model colour black. We are literally going to brush paint this interior. It's the simplest way of doing it. We could mask it and try and do it, but A, you're not going to see this that well. And B, it'll be a right pain to mask. So it's just not worth the time doing it really. You might as well brush paint it. So we've got a Tamiya HF flat brush. Vallejo model colour black. It's been thinned with a drop or 2 of water. And a few minutes of painting. We're going to paint all the interior that's not been painted black. And then we're going to do all of our wheel wells as well. Inner wheel arches will be black like this. So there's a little ridge that runs around the edge. So put the paintbrush right up to that. And run it around nice and gentle. Any excess paint, because it's water based over the 2K especially, will literally rub right off. I'll show you that at the end in a minute. But there we go, that's that painted. That just needs to dry. Any excess from the window, A, B and C pillars, they can be wiped off with a cotton bud. Anything on the wheel arches can all be wiped off as well. Literally, you just get a dry cotton bud and it just wipes it off. Because it's over the 2K, it wipes off unbelievably easy. And there we go. Leave that to dry. The job's a good one. Have a good inspect. I love this colour of this car. This Ipanina, Iron Apple, whatever the hell it is, brown is absolutely stunning. Now, the under tray on this is surprisingly detailed for one of these cars, and the lads give me a bit of a ribbon for not detail painting it. I'm never going to see it, and I'm not spending hours painting it for something I'll never ever see. We're going to prime it with Mist Surfacer 1500 black in the spray can. Couple of light coats of this, getting all the angles, but it's actually a decently thick chassis plate, and this one actually screws in place perfectly. It does. It fits in absolutely spot on. So a couple of light coats of this, leave it to one side to dry. All we need to do on the body, even the body holes are kind of pre-drilled to a short depth, is lengthen those holes, and we can use the kit supplied screws to screw the chassis in place. So nice to see this actually fits, because some of the other kits have been a little bit problematic in that it needs to screw in place. So the Mr. Surfacer 1500 black, if you're struggling to find the actual potter paint, decant this stuff, thinner a little bit, it works just as well. Very handy in the spray gun. I'm just drying it off with air. That's what I'm doing here. I sped this up because it was a bit boring segment of painting. But yeah, it works just as well decanted. I've tried it. It works really well. So if you're struggling to get the pots of paint, you can buy this. And it's probably just as cost effective, to be honest, to do. But for me, this is just handy for painting things like this while we're on fast coverage quickly. Now, I have a confession to make. I did film, well, I thought I did, putting all the interior in and gluing it in place. But for some reason I haven't. So this is that earlier bit of footage where I was test fitting it. So imagine doing this, but we're putting glue on all the parts as well, and that's us assembling the interior. I repeated the footage because for some reason, I think I forgot to click record. Philip's going to give me hell for this. But I was convinced I'd recorded it, but I hadn't. So the front dab of the dashboard at the front gets a little dab of paint, super glue at the front. Each one of the door cards does it at the side. The seats are already glued in place. We did that earlier. And this rear partial shelf gets a few dabs of glue at the back. And this one gets none at all. That one just rests in. So imagine we glue that in place and we're good to go. And then we're going to widen these holes underneath. Now we're back to real time. So we've got our screws and we've got a drill bit that's just a shade thinner than the screws. You don't want to apply loads of pressure to this resin. So drill it out. We've done all 4 holes. Make sure we get this the right way around. Now it was a very precise fitting part, this one. Very surprised. Pop our screws in. Be nice and careful. Like I say, these shouldn't be tight. If there's any real resistance, take it out and drill it wider. You do not want to be cracking this resin because it's sod's law. The crack will travel through to the bonnet and ruin all your paintwork. So we definitely don't want to do that. And just gently screw everything in place. Like so, you can paint the screws black if you want later on. The back piece kind of just clicked in place, really nice. And there we go. There's our interior in. I like the tan on the bronze. I think it looks good. We're going to take this bottom plate off later. I didn't realise. I forgot about the front grille, but it'll screw off in seconds. But for the most part, there we go. There's our interior in place. The body polished up. We're on the finishing stretch now of this. We've still got our windows, lights, grills, and wheels to do, and brakes. But we're definitely on the home stretch now. So there we go. Let's go back to me. Okay, there we go. That's where we're at today. So, as I said, it's not the most interesting of interiors. It's a functional Audi interior. It's not a fancy Ferrari or Lamborghini. So, no flamboyant bits in there. I kept it quite conservative. But I think the tan on black looks quite good. I think it suits the bronze colour as well. I think overall it doesn't look too bad at all. Like I said, I've added some accents in there with the silver parts, with the PE and the hand-painted bits. And I think it doesn't look too bad. Now, should have added a wash. I think I need to invest, like I said, in some of the brown Tamiya panel line wash. I think I definitely do. I think that's a job for today. I'm going to have a hunt around for it. Because I think there's a couple of tones of brown, and I think in there, that would have been a perfect complement with that tan. I don't have it. Like I say, I've got oil paints, and oil does work as a wash very well, but it takes so long to dry that when you're trying to be precise and remove out of things like seats, it just keeps pulling itself back out because it takes so long to dry. Even if you put liquid in, which speeds up the process, it still takes a long time. So I think to look for the enamel panel liner wash from Tamiya is the way to go, and I think that's what we're going to do. So next time, we'll add a wash and see what it looks like. So let me know your thoughts. That's the question for today. Should I have added a wash, or should I have left it as it is? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. As always, make sure you sub to the channel, click the bell notifications to get notified of our latest video, give the video a thumbs up, and leave a comment. Love reading all your comments. They always spare me along with the builds, and I always heart them if I read them, and I try and respond as much as I possibly can. As always, you want to support the videos and keep the content going. There's a Patreon me link down below. If you go tier 2 or higher, you get 2-week early access on all the videos, as well as other perks associated with the channel, and a monthly live stream as well, which you can win prizes too. If you want to know my merch, you can get there over my merch page. You've got the Look Up When It's Finished t-shirt. I've got mugs now, aprons, and I'm going to do a run of sweatshirts next. Like I said in the video, it's getting cooler now. It is, so I think a sweatshirt will be the next one for modelling in the cave. And I've got a nice slogan for that one as well, courtesy of Jamie, but we'll discuss that later. And if you want to make a donation at all, there's a PayPal me and a Buy Me Coffee link in the description as well. And there's all links to everything down below. Starring the Machine, my other group, ISM, UMP, everything. An email address that gets directly in touch with me if you've got any questions. My scale mate is there, and links to my Amazon affiliate store, and a link to all the products I use in my videos. There we go. Thanks for watching today. I will probably be back for part 3 next to get this project done and dusted, and then I think we're going to jump back on the Lancia again and try and get some more work done on that, and then back to the GTX. Lots on the go at the minute, and some exciting new projects coming up as well. A slightly different variation on the modelling theme, but I'll explain that when they come to fruition. I'll probably explain it at a bench update I'm going to do in a few days. Yeah, so there we go. Thanks for watching. Make sure you sub to the channel. Enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.